got a government cutting hospitals to fund bombing raids, borrowing from America to call it self-reliance, and running an economy that can't exist without a war to justify it. The headlines call it budget strain. Well, it's just doing a lot of heavy lifting, isn't it? Because the truth's a lot simpler. The machine that lives on crisis has eaten through all of its own fuel, and now it's complaining it's hungry and wants even more. Right, so Israeli military officials have quietly told their own finance ministry that the army is not prepared for new wars unless it receives an urgent budget boost. And that's as close to a confession as you're ever likely to get from a government built on permanent mobilisation for the sake of keeping one man in power, I suppose. The generals said the quiet part out loud. They burned through the stockpiles, all of their budget, and frankly the story they concocted to cover all of this got torched long ago as well. But they've reached the edge of their own arithmetic and they can no longer make the numbers add up. And the figures prove it too. The Knesset has already pumped an extra 30.8 billion shekels, about $9 billion, into defence this year, taking the national budget from 756 to 787 billion shekels. Finance officials admit that still isn't enough. Another 42 billion shekels is penciled in for 2025-26 just to replenish munitions and rebuild capabilities, to maintain where they are currently standing at. Those numbers come straight from the ministries themselves, and that's on top of roughly 190 billion shekels already borrowed since 2023 just to keep that war machine fed, to keep the Gaza genocide and every other front they are engaged in warfare on going. The legal deficit ceiling had to be lifted to 5.2% of GDP just to let the Treasury keep on signing the checks. What the generals are really saying is that the IDF planned for a month-long war, maybe 6 weeks, not for a 2-year grind across multiple fronts. Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, the map just keeps lighting up and the army keeps asking for more money to keep it going. They call it readiness, but the numbers demonstrate military fiscal exhaustion. The share of defence spending has hit between 8 and 9% of GDP, the highest since 1967, and about 3 times the OECD average. No Western economy sustains that level without gutting its civilian core, without gutting what it means to be a functioning state. Even the Bank of Israel's own reports warn that the burden risks long-term fiscal erosion. Debt now sits at near 70% of GDP. The 2024 deficit closed around 6.9%. Growth has fallen to 1%, and that's the rosy estimate, inflated by government spending itself. Fitch cut Israel's credit rating to A with a negative outlook. Moody's pushed it down to Baa1. Those are not figures of resilience, they're the symptoms of a state living permanently in its own overdraft. The same Treasury briefing that demanded more defence money also ordered 3% cuts across every civilian ministry to pay for it.